Hello, welcome back to my podcast. My name is Nishelle, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I basically travel all over Europe while studying here, and I mostly do solo travels as well, and I love to share my experiences. I like this podcast style more because I can go more in detail of what it's like to actually go there, the transport, the SIM card, like basically all the minor details to think about before you actually go to a place, and it's hard to portray this quite well in my vlog style videos. So in this episode, I'm talking about traveling to Montenegro, and mainly I went to the capital city of Podgorica and to the very famous Bay of Kotor. This was such an adventurous place. I took a very short trip of about 3 days, including like the weekend a bit, so I didn't have many holidays to take. But I think this was for me a good enough time in this place to get a good feeling for it. So it started in Podgorica. I obviously heard things from people that there isn't much to do here because it's not a very touristic town. I sadly don't know much about the history because when I went there, I could not get a walking tour where you actually meet the locals and get an idea of the history. But I do know that the city had gone through a lot of bombings, and so generally it's not very rebuilt. There isn't an old town kind of place, and it's just not a very beautiful city in general. But I do think there are cool things to do here. But when I first entered the country, I really did not stay in the capital at all. I just took the very first bus that goes to Kotor because I didn't want to waste any time in the beginning. So I booked my buses online before, but you can of course also book it on the spot there. The buses are rarely full, and it was super easy to get by. So my tickets were about €8, plus I paid €1 for the station ticket, which is quite common in the Balkan regions. And it was totally very easy to get by. What was really horrible was the food at the train station. Please do not eat there. The food was so disgusting. Actually, at any train station I've experienced in Montenegro, it was just really dry sandwiches and it was just so hard to eat. So I would not recommend at all. To be honest, food-wise, I did not get very lucky on this trip. I think I barely ate anything I liked on this trip, to be honest. The only nice thing was I had a gyros that was delicious from a local shop, and on the last day I ate at Hilton because I really was fed up of having terrible food, and they not overpriced, but the thing is that it's just costing too much for really bad food. You know what I mean? If it costed the amount that it gave you a good meal, you would not mind, I guess. But it was like €6-7, and you got the worst sandwich ever. So I would not recommend the food so much in this area. Maybe I would think if you go to nice restaurants that are very famous, and also like hotels, they would definitely have some quality and it's more manageable to eat there. But coming back to transport, super easy to get by the buses. Apparently the taxis are also quite cheap. So when I first came from the airport, it was like €15, which I think I overpaid a bit. But later on, I learned from my hostel that the taxis are quite affordable here. It should cost about €10 actually to go to the hostel to the airport, and also within the city around €2 or €3 only. So that's really cool. I wish I knew this before, but I did not. I mean, my hostel did mention it to me, so please read the instructions your hostel gives you because they're generally very helpful, and they know that tourists are not having any idea of the amount of money things cost. So it's a great idea to ask your hostel all these questions before actually. And the next thing I want to talk about is getting to Kotor. So it took around like, I would say 3 hours, the total drive to Kotor. So it's much faster by car because you go directly, and I think it's an hour and a half. But the bus took way longer because it goes through like Budva and through like just a whole circle basically. So it doesn't go super directly. But I had a great time because I actually met a friend on the bus. He was from England, and we were like just talking the whole way. It was pretty cool. And once we reached Kotor, I just dropped my bags off at the hostel and immediately got out with him, and we went to climb the fortress, which was such a cool experience. The climb is 1,300 steps, so that is very, very, very long. It took me a total of at least 3 hours, I would say, to like go up, enjoy the view, and then come down. And it was quite a doable hike, of course. It just takes a bit of time, but the view is spectacular. It really, like the city from that high looks a bit like Dubrovnik, and it has loads of cruises there as well. And I think this area is very popular for water sports, for boat trips. So these are the things you must do when you're in Qatar, especially because it's really, I would say, fairly cheap over here. Like the kayak I was doing here was 15 euros, the boat trips were 20, so it's way cheaper than if you would do it in Greece or Croatia. So definitely a must do when you're in Qatar. And the view to the fortress, this cost about 8 euros, but I know there is a way to get there through the backside, and this is of course free, but the walk is not as easy. But definitely it costs nothing, so maybe it's worth doing if you don't want to spend the money for it. And I think it would be beautiful in the sunset time, but I did not stay till that long because I'm always a bit nervous to be out in the dark in a new city. I always like to be home before the day is totally over. It's a bit like, for me, a bit scary. So after this hike, we were so tired that we went to eat in a restaurant, and I just got a Greek salad because they didn't have shopska, which is my favorite salad from the Balkans. And he got a squid, which is quite, I think, local cuisine, that was stuffed with ham. And this was so delicious, actually. It was quite salty for me, but definitely something you have to try in a new place. It was quite interesting. I didn't have much seafood here, unfortunately. I don't know if it's very big on seafood, but squid and yeah, calamari and stuff like this was quite easily findable in this area. And by the end of the day, my friend had to go back to Podgorica, so he left. And in that restaurant itself, I had to do a meeting back home, so I was just there for another 2 hours, just doing my meeting during my holiday. Such a vibe kill, but it was alright. And this is where I met actually another girl, and she was eating by herself. And I remember that she messaged me on Hostel World if I am arriving in Qatar and we should meet up, and I recognized her face, and I was like, hey, I just remember you messaged me a few days ago. And then we kind of caught up, and it was really nice to make at least a girlfriend in a trip. I really think this is so important for me because I get a extra sense of security that I know a girl, and I know that, you know, as women we understand when you're feeling unsafe or things like that. So it's always nice, I think, to have at least a woman friends when you're solo traveling. And I was so glad to have her because I've had some rocky experiences, to be honest, in Montenegro, and it felt much safer to have one girlfriend I know I can somewhat rely on, even though we just met. So it was really cool to have met her. And the first night I didn't do anything with the hostel because I was super tired. I was up for like 24 hours or something by that point, and I really wanted to like sleep well, so I did not do any socializing that day. I already did too much, I think, so I was really happy to crash, and I didn't really talk to anyone else after. But the next day I woke up quite early because I wanted to go for a walking tour, but it was raining and pouring so intensely. I knew it would because the weather forecast did say that it's going to be very rainy the whole time I was gonna be there. But I was quite lucky that it was only like storming in the morning, but after 12 generally it got much warmer, and at most there were like some drizzling, but it wasn't really very bad weather. So I was quite lucky, to be honest. So I would recommend that even if your forecast tells you it's gonna rain, just go. Like if you booked your tickets, if you plan to go, just do it. Like you never know what the weather's gonna be like there. I was all very, very close to canceling my trip right before the few days before I was gonna go, because I thought, what's the point if it rains? I'm just gonna go there and do nothing. I can just do nothing in my house instead. But I knew I booked the tickets, I took the holidays, so I just wanna see it, and it doesn't matter, I will meet people anyway. So I'm glad I did go because I could do everything as I would do on a holiday, even though the weather wasn't the most ideal. So I fully recommend that don't skip a holiday because of the forecast. And so after this rainy morning, I just spent the most of the morning inside a cafe. I had my earphones in, I had a really good audiobook, and I had really nice breakfast. It was this delicious Montenegrin omelet, which had like ham inside and some cheese. It was delicious. And they had really nice desserts too in this cafe. It was like caramel puddings or something like that. And the staff was super friendly. So I really love this place. I will write the name somewhere here because I know it's a very difficult to write name. I saw it on Google Maps and I would not be able to type it in English. But it was really cool. And after this, I met up with this girl again. She was an Indian girl, and we then headed to the old town. We looked around a bit. They had really cute shops there, especially with souvenirs. And I found a very nice rooftop bar that was completely empty. So it was basically our own, and we took like a lot of photos here. We did like a whole photo shoot. And the rooftop bar was not, of course, the highest floor, was like the fourth floor, I guess, but you still see a lot of like rooftops from there. And it's a beautiful place for photos and also nice drinks. So we were day drinking over here, and you get like one view of the mountain, one view of the whole roofs. And I think it's a must see when you go here. It's one of the best rooftop places, in my opinion. In Qatar, there aren't so many. And after this, we headed out to a boat tour. So they have two kinds of boat tours. There is a 1.5 hour boat tour costing 20 euros, and there's a 3 hour boat tour that costs 40. But actually, they also sell it to you for 30 or 35, so you can bargain about this. And there's so many companies there that they would be happy to negotiate with you. So I went for the 1.5 hour boat tour. It was just going to a few islands, because there's some nearby islands that is like one man-made and one that is natural, and there are churches built on this. And you get to see Perast, which is also nearby, and it's not a very interesting town. I mean, it's quite beautiful and also quite romantic, and they have a few churches, but there isn't a whole lot of things to do there. And then we just came back, so that was the whole boat tour basically. You can also go on the 3 hour boat tour to the Blue Caves and to the submarine tunnel. I do not know what this is, because the blue, it's called Blue Cave, I think. But this part actually was not possible to go when I was there, because there were really high tides. The weather was really bad, so it would be quite scary to go to that part, as well as you couldn't swim, because normally they would stop, then you can swim for a bit, but it was not the weather for it on this day. So we skipped that tour and did the shorter one. It was quite nice, and it was we went with also a family of 3, so we were like together on this boat. But on the way back, the family got off at Perast, and we came back later, just me and my friends. And it got a bit creepy at this point, because we were quite happy to have like our own private boat at that point. But the boat driver was a bit, I don't know, a bit strange and asking weird questions, and it just really ruined the mood for me, because I was really happy to just enjoy the boat trip. But then the way he was looking at us made me really kind of like just die to get back to the shore. So yeah, I think the evening was quite fun, but loads of things are ruined for me by the kind of guys I met at this point. So I was not really having the best time I could have had. I don't know. It was strange, because I feel like all the people I met here, especially the men, were quite friendly at first and quite happy to like have a conversation, and seemed really just normal guys of my age. But over time, it got really creepy with the conversations and the kind of like things they were trying, and I was just feeling so awkward and uncomfortable. And I'm very glad I had this girlfriend, that I felt like I could hang out with her and kind of just move on. But it was just not such a great environment for me personally, so I wouldn't recommend this place really for solo travelers. It's much better if you go with a group of people or with a group of friends. It really makes it a lot more safer for you. I didn't genuinely feel so unsafe, but just really uncomfortable, to be honest. Anyway, so after this trip on the boat, we got back, and I was just happy to like be off the boat at this point. And I didn't leave any reviews for any of the places, because my reviews would be not so good, and I was not sure how honest to be in this situation, because I really want other women to know that it's not the safest and most comfortable. But as well as these people weren't horribly rude, you know what I mean? Like, you can go there and have a good time, just nicer with a group of people, nicer if you're a guy, nicer probably with family. So just a different situation would make it already a whole lot better, in my opinion. And then after this was really fun. We went swimming for a little while near the beach. It was not that warm. It was like 19 degrees, so you could go in the water for a bit. You were freezing, but it was really fun still. And people were like even sun tanning at this point, which I was surprised, but it was still nice. The weather was really actually pleasant at this in the evening. The sunset was gorgeous. And during the sunset, we got to go on the kayak that was hosted by our hostel, and it was 15 euros per kayak, and it's kind of like on your own. You don't do it with two people, you just do it alone, and they kind of show you how to row. There was like a trainer kind of guy who works there, and it was really nice to do it with him. And we did a whole almost, I would say almost 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hour kayaking. My arms were hurting, but I think this is something anyone can do, even someone who is very new and does not know how to kayak at all. Even they can manage it, because I could. Your arms hurt a lot and my feet were numb after, but the views were worth it. Like the sunset view from the water when you're on the boat, and we also shared a beer. It was really a fun time. Like for me, this is the best memory actually of my trip. I would totally recommend this to anybody and everybody, because the view was just insane. To see purple skies reflected in the water, and just you're out there on a solo trip enjoying your best life. I loved it. Like that's a picture I have in my mind forever, because I could not take my phone, so I had no photos on my phone. So I just live in this memory in my mind. I just love it so much. And one of the guys had a camera, and the other guy had a GoPro, so they took like photos of us when we were around. But it was just such a fun time. I would say the kayaking is a must do in Kotor. It's really, really a spectacular view. After this, we headed out to the hostel. I had the best gyros at this point. It's questionable whether the gyros was so good or just that I was super hungry and I was dying, so anything was delicious. But actually, it was very good. It was also very spicy, and I rate it. It was delicious. It was from this place called, I think, House of Gyros, but I will link it. And then we had like a game night at the hostel, so we were playing beer pong. We were just like all chilling together, got to know everybody. So that was quite a fun time, to be honest. I really enjoyed this part because we were totally in a group and we could like talk to all the people, mingle. So it was pretty nice at this point. And then we went for a pub crawl. So I think it was a bit overhyped, the nightlife by the hostel owners. So we went for this pub crawl, and it was interesting because there were just two bars. So one of them was really nice. I liked the first one. It was really, I think it's called the Old Town Pub. And that was beautiful because there were lots of people, and not just from our hostel, but also others and other tourists, I guess. So it was quite nice here, and the drinks were pretty cheap. It was like 5 euros for gin and tonic, so it was pretty nice. And after this, they were going to the next bar. It was just right around the corner, but I did not like this place at all. I just stepped in and stepped out because it was so packed and so tiny, and too many guys for me, so I was not super comfortable. So I just did not go there at all. But I was just staying at the first bar. It was beautiful there, and there were cats inside. If you did not know, Kotor is called apparently City of Cats, and there were so many, and it was really cute. We stayed there for a bit. We also had this really fun, what do you call that? Darts. We had darts on the upstairs of this bar. So we were kind of like playing this. It was quite fun. And we were together as a group at this point, so it was quite nice. After this, it got for me a bit weird because I felt there were a lot of strange men at this point. It was already 1 p.m. in the night, 1 a.m. in the night, and I was just wanting to go home, and I didn't want to walk alone from the old town to the hostel because it's quite like a 15 minutes walk, I guess, and I didn't want to do this on my own. So I went back with the group and I stuck with them, but as soon as we reached back, I was just like, I cannot be here anymore. I was really annoyed by how they were somehow treating me, and I was just like, I'm going to bed. So I just left everyone because they were going to be at the beach and they were going to like chill there in the night, but I could not tolerate just being around them at this point. It was really not so fun for me, so I just left. And I had an early morning the next day, so I went checking out at around 9 p.m. Sorry, 9 a.m. What's wrong with me? And at this point, I just left, and I just paid my rent and everything, and I was just very happy to leave. I was happy I did not have one more day over there, because I would be a bit more like really uncomfortable the next night. So I'm glad it was just one night and I left. And then I went to Podgorica. This was a much shorter journey. It felt like it was like almost maybe 2 hours to get back. I don't remember if we went to Budva and everything all the way again, or it was quite short. But it was very, very comfortable. It was in a small van, not like a big bus, but it was totally fine. And reaching back to Podgorica, I did not know what to do here, but I loved the hostel here. And the person who I met at the counter, like the reception lady, she was so nice. She gave us such great hints of like what you can do in one afternoon in Podgorica. She gave us her favorite like bars or cafes you can go to, and she really made the trip really comfortable for me. Like, I think I already felt so much nicer to have like somehow a female hostel reception I can always go to. She was always available, and even in my short time there, if I had any problems, she was ready to always help, and things like that. So I really love this hostel. It was so clean, it was so relaxing and comfortable, and they had such beautiful aesthetics. Even their social room looked so gorgeous. I was surprised. They only have, I think, one hostel in Podgorica, but it's really the best one, so I was very happy. It's called Q Podgorica. It was really nice here. I think it was, I mean, all my hostels were within the range of about 15 euros, I would say, so it was not expensive at all. It was really affordable. And what was really nice was she gave me recommendations to go to a library bar, which apparently there was some history and I've forgotten. I think it was a famous library before, but it had to get broken down and now it's a bar, but don't quote me on this, I may be wrong. Again, in both my trips, I realized in both the cities that I really did not get to do a walking tour, and I'm really upset about this because I love these walking tours. You really get to know about the history a lot more and you feel so engaged with the place, and I really missed this out in both of the cities. So I don't know anything about Montenegro apparently after traveling there for the whole time. So that's on me. That's on me, to be honest. I really wish I got to do at least one walking trip to learn more about the place. And so I went to this bar. It was really beautiful. I had like a cappuccino here. It was like the afternoon time, and it's basically right under a bridge, and there's loads of people here. Especially I was surprised to see loads of young people, because in Podgorica when I was there, I didn't feel like I saw anyone on the road. It looked super empty. But at this bar, there were quite a lot of people, and they all looked like in my age group, and there were a lot of dogs. That was the cutest. So I had a very nice time in this bar. And then I walked around a little bit. I did not know what exactly I should see. There were like some mosque and a clock tower and a center, but I wouldn't say there's too much to see in this place. So I basically enjoyed my time at the Hilton in the end. I was just sitting there enjoying, because the views are beautiful at the Hilton. Like, the restaurant downstairs was really gorgeous. They had great cakes. I actually had the cheese spring roll, and I just sat there for a few hours with my book, and I had such a nice time there. The interiors are beautiful, and it was raining the whole time I was there, so I loved being on those long windows, watching the rain outside while being cozy and comfortable on the inside. So I really had a superb time there, and I headed back to the hostel around like 7 before it got too dark. The only bad thing with the hostel is that it's a half an hour walk, or you take a taxi, but I just walked it. So it's nice. Oh, it's a nice walk, but in the nighttime I wouldn't want to walk half an hour, so then I would take a cab. But I was doing this in the day times. I was fine. I really have a weird paranoia about this, to be honest. I just hate to be in the nighttime alone in the city, but maybe for good reason. Maybe it's a good thing I shouldn't do it. Like, I would probably hang out if I had friends or things like that, and go out for dinner with them. But I didn't make any friends in Podgorica, so I was on my own here. And then in the hostel as well, I went to the common room, but there weren't many people here. So I would say it's not a very social hostel. And the people, what I've heard of as well, who were coming here to this place, they were not, I think, tourists, but they were people who work like digitally, remotely. So they were also like working. They were also not super free or things like that. So I would not say it's a great place for socializing or making friends, in my opinion. Like Kotor was super social. I did not have one single minute on my own, to be honest. So Podgorica was the only time I actually got to have a bit of alone time on my solo travel. So I did not mind it at all. I was fine with this. And the next morning, I called the taxi to come pick us at 6 a.m. and I got to share it with another person who was leaving at this time as well. So it was like literally €5 that I paid to go to the airport, which is the cheapest my trip to the airport has ever been. So I really think transport is a great thing here. It's super convenient, easy. The buses go very well. So it's very, very well connected for a place that does not have many tourists, unfortunately. And yeah, the airport is pretty fine too. I had like a coffee there. It's quite a small airport, so you really cannot enter inside the past the security. You cannot go there at all unless it's like 1 hour, 1.5 hour before your flight. So you have to sit at the cafe outside. So it's a really tiny airport, but it was totally fine for me. I really like the place. So overall, I would say that Podgorica is such a cool capital. Like it's worth seeing for at least a day. There isn't too much to do, but it's still a nice place to be there. Mostly I think it's like a layover place for people who want to go to the airport, so kind of like that, I guess. Overall, I would say just the whole experience in Montenegro is very cool, and the rainy weather did not ruin it at all. Like the trip was spectacular, irrespective of the fact that it was quite rainy and not always sun and shining, but it was still a super awesome place to see. I really think it's a hugely underrated place, because unfortunately none of my friends have been there, or I haven't heard so many stories of Kotor so far. And I think Kotor is a must visit because it's just so affordable and so beautiful, and it should be on your go-to list, especially with a group of girlfriends. I would love a place like Kotor because you can easily have like fun night out. You can easily go on boat trips the whole day. There's so much cool stuff that one can do there. So I fully recommend to go to Montenegro. I hope I will go back, especially to Kotor or Budva. I think Budva, from what I've heard, is a great place for also a bit of luxury traveling, because Kotor is more, I would say, has more hostels and more like youthful, but Budva has more of like luxurious hotels and like more parties and more social life, in my opinion. But overall, I really recommend this place. And if you have any questions, if you want to ask anything, let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.